Not every love is returned, and not every chase ends with an embrace. In Greek mythology, there is a love story as radiant as the sun, yet it ends in silence. It is the tale of Apollo, god of light, art, and prophecy, and Daphne, a forest nymph who loved freedom more than any vowed love. Their love did not begin with a glance, but with an arrow, and it ended not with a kiss, but with the cold embrace of ancient bark. Apollo, the god of light, ruled over music, prophecy, and healing. He could mend wounds or unleash deadly plagues. It was for this power that Psyche's father came, seeking answers from the divine voice of fate. Last but not least, Apollo was a master archer, a true sharpshooter, and that brought trouble to the god of love, Cupid. Apollo despised Cupid, and as far as Cupid knew, that hatred was anything but noble. When Cupid was still just a child, a monstrous serpent named Python terrorized the world. No one dared to face it until Apollo stepped forward. With a single arrow, Apollo struck down Python, saving gods and mortals alike. Proud of his triumph, he boasted of his victory to all who would listen across Olympus. One lazy afternoon in the divine palace, Apollo sat on the terrace, proudly retelling his glorious feat, how he slew Python with a single arrow. Venus, however, had heard that story far too many times to care. Her mind was preoccupied with a far more pressing dilemma. Should she choose the peach silk sheets or the pale green ones for her bed tonight? After all, she was Venus, the goddess of beauty, and the thought of sleeping on the same bed sheets for 2 nights in a row made her shudder. So much so that she nearly needed a steaming bath, just to recover from the very idea. Soudain lit, venu noticer Apollo login. A rare sight, for the god of light was never known for his sense of humor. She followed his gaze. There stood Cupid, a small child stepping onto the marble terrace, clutching a tiny bow and a quiver full of miniature arrows, ready for practice.
Well, well, how adorable.
Apollo laughed heartily. He reached down and picked up his own massive bow resting beside his chair, raising it proudly.
With this bow,
Apollo declared, his voice rich with pride.
I slew Python, the monstrous serpent that terrorized the land, its body sprawling across fields and valleys. And you, little one, what do you think you can achieve with that tiny toy bow and those little arrows?
Then Apollo's smile faded. His voice grew stern.
The bow and arrow are my weapons. Find something else to amuse yourself.
Venus noticed Cupid's eyes narrow sharply, a flash of anger crossing his innocent face. She leaned toward Apollo, her voice edged with genuine concern. Venus noticed Cupid's eyes narrow sharply, a flash of anger crossing his innocent face. She leaned toward Apollo, her voice edged with genuine concern.
Apollo, I think you should apologize to Cupid. He doesn't like being made fun of.
Apollo lifted his head and looked at her with a mocking smile.
Apologize? To a child? Surely you're joking.
Venus shook her head, her worry deepening.
Apollo, oh gods, you truly don't understand. You really should apologize. You clearly don't know my son.
Apollo chuckled dismissively.
I'm sure the boy can do plenty of little tricks to amuse his mother. But I am Apollo. What could a child possibly do to me?
Venus sighed, her voice dropping low.
Alas, don't say I didn't warn you.
Cupid raised his delicate bow, drawing back the string with a golden-tipped arrow that gleamed under the divine light. He stared straight at Apollo, and his voice, deep and unwavering, no longer that of a child, rang out.
Your arrows have power over the world outside. But mine command the world within.
Without another word, Cupid released the string. The golden arrow flew, swift and true, striking Apollo's heart. And in that very instant, Apollo's eyes fell upon Daphne, the beautiful forest nymph, daughter of the river god Puntius. Quick as a spark, Cupid drew another arrow, its tip wrapped in cold lead, and let it fly straight into Daphne's heart. Love and rejection, both born in the same breath. Their eyes met, Apollo's and Daphne's. Love seized Apollo's heart like the talons of an eagle, clenching a trembling, warm little rabbit. But in Daphne's chest, no such love bloomed. Only a cold, searing hatred took root. Apollo gazed at her, his eyes brimming with desperate affection. Yet Daphne met his gaze not with warmth, but with an icy glare, sharp and unyielding. Apollo saw the fear etched across her face. And still, the god who had conquered so much believed that one day she would love him as fiercely, as helplessly as he now loved her. No matter how mighty Apollo was, he was wrong. The poison from Cupid's arrow coursed through Daphne's veins, freezing any warmth she might have once held for any man. Poor Daphne. Every day, every night, she found Apollo's gaze haunting her from sunrise to moonrise. The god never left. He waited outside her window, hoping, yearning. Had restraining orders existed then, Daphne would have filed one. But back then, all she could do was run. And she ran, like a doe before the hungry eyes of a wolf. Until one morning, Daphne stepped outside. And Apollo was there, with wildflowers in one hand and a great basket of chocolate in the other. Tempting, yes, but not enough to drown the revulsion in her heart.
Go away. Leave me alone.
She cried. But Apollo, blinded by desire, only responded with poetry, verses written by the muse Erato herself. He thought poetry could melt her. But what women truly need is not pretty words. It is to be heard. Apollo wasn't listening. He only heard the yes he wanted, even when she was shouting no. So Daphne ran, and Apollo gave chase, faster than wind, driven by a love that had no mercy. Desperate, Daphne cried out to her father, the river god Peneus.
Father, save me. If you cannot, transform me, make me anything but his.
The words had barely left her lips when magic answered. Her feet rooted to the ground, her skin hardened into bark, her flowing hair turned to shimmering leaves. When Apollo reached her, all he found was a laurel tree. Frozen, broken, he wrapped his arms around the tree, whispering,
You shall never fade. Your leaves shall crown the victors, the heroes, the kings. And so it is. To this day, every laurel wreath bears the echo of a love that never came to be.
And so it is. To this day, every laurel wreath bears the echo of a love that never came to be. From that day forward, Apollo never chased another soul. Upon his head, he wore a laurel wreath, woven from the very leaves of Daphne, a silent vow to keep her close forever. The laurel became a symbol of victory, of glory, of art. But few remember, behind that crown lies a love that was never meant to be. One loved too deeply. One longed only to be free. No one was at fault. It was fate, sealed by the first arrows ever fired.